Welcome everybody back to another episode of the Free Agent Podcast. So excited to have Jim Lefevere here. Jim, thanks for joining.
Oh, pleasure. Glad to be here. Thank you both.
Yeah, so quick bio. So you're a recognized leader in the digital transformation AI-driven healthcare solutions, which obviously has been a hot space the last several years. And you recently founded Genovis Health Advisors, a strategic consultancy specializing in growth, innovation, and commercialization for life sciences, medtech, and digital health companies. Looks like your organization helps companies accelerate market leadership through data-driven strategies, commercialization consulting, and digital health acceleration. That's a whole mouthful, but Jim, thanks for joining. I really appreciate it.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about kind of yourself, your background, and how you came upon founding Genovis.
Yeah, both. So I have spent my entire career really at the intersection of healthcare, technology, and innovation. And I've always tried to push in all of the roles that I've had digital marketing
Mhm.
because it's so efficient and effective, and really working in healthcare industries where there's still tremendous opportunity to be able to find efficiencies. It really kind of became a cornerstone of my career. And so I've led transformations, I've led marketing teams on a global basis, and that kind of bent towards technology really then kind of led itself to AI. And so I spent 24 years at Roche, leading global marketing, developing and launching new products, and really building kind of high performing global teams. And along the way, was able to generate a lot of sales, new sales globally through the use of digital, and then also through having digital first strategies. So putting
Mhm.
those in place where we think about digital first rather than offline activities, and was able to demonstrate significant ROI by doing that. And so, as I was leaving my career at Roche, I really wanted to build a consultancy that was not only around my skills and expertise, but really kind of captured that belief around digital and now AI,
Mhm.
and really kind of extend that to other companies. Because I fervently believe that that is still the future.
Right.
There's still tremendous opportunity there.
Yeah, no, totally agree, and I believe that it's very topical. Health tech space has increased substantially, of course, since COVID the last 2 3 years, and it's been one of the areas that we've seen that's continued to grow, where some of the other technology-centric companies have kind of flatlined a little bit or even decreased. So really glad to hear the focus, and I know a lot of companies struggle with that as well as having a digital, first mindset, but then also AI is terrifying, right? So, what do you do with AI and how's it going to impact your business and the industry at large? Jumping into the operational side of the house really quickly, like what do you think some of the biggest operational, like and strategic growth challenges companies have in the healthcare space when trying to scale?
Yeah, so well, first, part of my role at Roche was working in innovation, and so we developed a strategy to move into type 2 diabetes, and part of that strategy was not only leading internal R&D development, but then also scouting and scanning to find external teams to build an ecosystem. And it was through that experience that I really realized that there are a lot of great ideas out there and a lot of great companies out there. And the single question that most of these startups that I worked with had was how to effectively commercialize their product. And then if they were doing some commercialization, it was really how to scale to get to growth. And so, again, recognizing that there was an opportunity there, I think the focus and being able to work with whether it's a PE backed or VC
Mhm.
health tech, digital health company, is that there's a lot of opportunity to help those companies kind of grow. I think to answer your question more directly, is that there's great technology out there. It's translating that technology to something that can grow and scale and be commercialized.
Mhm.
I think it's being able to kind of break through the clutter in the market because there are a ton of companies out there. And so, how do you break through? How do you use insights? How do you understand jobs to be done in order to build commercialization plans
Mhm.
and be able to get a foothold in the market? And then I think it's about thinking about marketing, not just as marketing or building your brand, but specifically around growth and how to attack the market specifically for your product, and thinking about kind of marketing in a growth and an attack mode
Mhm.
perspective.
So then, I mean, I guess just to kind of, dig a layer deeper. So one of the key obstacles preventing these digital health companies would be not having necessarily a game plan or leveraging kind of a marketing first or digital first type of approach.
Yeah, I think a lot of the companies have a lot of technical skill, and there's always going to be or for the most part, a technical leader. Uh,
Mhm.
but commercialization, I think, is often an afterthought, or it's not a primary thought. So they're building time, focus, money is going into building product, but there's not necessarily the same amount of time, effort, and money going into how are we going to get this into the market and grow.
Yeah, very different skill set. We see that a lot on kind of the SaaS side of the world as well, where these companies are created by great minds, product builders, tech builders, what have you. They build a great product and maybe it solves a problem, but they're not as adept at necessarily scaling. Or occasionally they solve for one specific problem that ends up going away, and then all of a sudden they're left without product market fit. And so I totally agree, not just on the health tech side of the house, but the sheer technology side of the house. Bringing in somebody that has kind of that mindset on the commercialization component and the scaling is a game changer. But you also need to know when to leverage somebody and to bring them into the fold.
Yeah, exactly. And how to grow and get to that next step in the company's growth. Because that's always going to be a goal in, how do you find the exit? The other kind of thing that I always think about and I bring to the table is that exit is always kind of a question. And the question when you talk to startups is, what do the big companies, the big pharma, what do they think and what are they looking for from startups in order to potentially be acquired? And so that's also an aspect that I also keep in mind when you talk about marketing, commercialization, and growth, because ultimately uh, an exit is the end goal. And how do you get there?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of companies are short-sighted. They don't build with the end in mind. And if you're looking to sell, there's some shortcuts and some things, best practices you can implement earlier that can kind of lend itself for a better valuation at the end. So, obviously a big, buzzword right now is AI. It's top of mind. So, how can a company leverage AI insights to help them with like market prioritization, product lifestyle management, and where do some of those gaps still exist between the two?
Yeah, that's a big question. I think there's based on, and I've talked to literally hundreds of companies about not only, their commercialization, but then how AI can fit into that.
Hmm.
And I think it's very, so healthcare in general, a little bit slower to adopt. And, I think the regulatory aspect that most companies deal with also, it's a little bit of an excuse as to why they're not maybe plowing into AI as quickly as they should. AI is a tremendous tool if you know how to use it. And so it reminds me of kind of the old database questions from 20, 25 years ago where garbage in, garbage out. I think people are experimenting quite a bit and they're trying to understand how it can uh, best help them. But if you don't know how to prompt in the right way, if you don't know how to use it, you're not going to get the results that you're looking for. So I think the biggest thing is to understand how to prompt and to use AI in order to generate insights about your company. And it's trial and error. So I
Hmm.
think the other thing is that people think AI, it reduces work, by a significant margin. And I have not necessarily seen that yet. I think it can help you get to things faster,
Agreed.
but you have to be able to reiterate and really kind of test it to get to the point where you're satisfied with the result. It's just not going to give you the result,
Mhm.
right off the bat. And that's trial and error, and you have to be able to commit the time to be able to do that. If you are, I think the insights that you can find from competitive information to building uh, ideal customer profiles for your own company, being able to develop personas, being able to understand jobs to be done for those personas and how they go about looking for information and searching. All of those things can help you build not only an understanding of who your buyer is, but then that can translate to how you start to build a commercialization plan, a go-to-market plan for your company and your product.
I think that's a great response, and I feel far too many people are scared or they don't know where to begin with AI. And it's one of those things where it's not going away, and it's not perfect, and it's getting better. Like I use it a lot, obviously, for my business, and it's way better now than it just was 3 months ago,
Yep.
and the 3 months before that, and it's continuing to get better, stronger, cleaner results. To your point, garbage in, garbage out, typically. But it's been a great tool for us, and it's allowed us to really kind of short circuit a lot of research. And it can also draw a lot of parallels between two items that may seem on its face, dissimilar. But it's really, really powerful. And leveraging somebody like such as yourself could obviously kind of help fast track the adoption. Moving into a bit of a different topic here. So differentiation is tough, particularly in a space such as healthcare. Just as an example, what do you typically see kind of the biggest challenge when trying to differentiate a product, and how can one company define a customer-centric strategy, one that wins?
Well, I think that starts with understanding the competitive landscape, and kind of ties back to really understanding the features and the value prop for your product, and then understanding the competitive landscape
Hmm.
and making sure you can differentiate your product. And again, you can use AI to help figure out all these things. You can do competitive research. You can also you can prompt AI to provide you with non-obvious insights. So that's one of my favorite ways of kind of getting to maybe insights that you're not thinking about, or aren't very kind of clear. So a lot of times people will prompt to try to get a direct answer. I will often go contrarian and prompt and look for non-obvious insights, and that kind of gives you a different lens or a different perspective
Right.
into how you can kind of pull out information and craft a plan that is differentiating for your product, but
Mhm.
then also as you go and prepare to go into the market as well.
Yeah, so I actually wrote that down, non-obvious insights, and I think that also underscores the importance of kind of diversity as it pertains to like leadership and outside opinions. And if a company's done the same thing for 20 years, then they're obviously going to have insights that are obvious. But bringing in somebody from the outside, maybe a fractional executive such as yourself, could help them uncover a slew of market opportunities that they didn't think existed prior.
Yeah, it's a fresh set of eyes, and especially if you're using AI powered insights and you're looking for non-obvious insights, it's those, and they can be really subtle, but it's those kinds of things that I think can be really differentiating. And
Mhm.
from a fractional perspective, I think if you are at a point where there's stalled growth, or you're not scaling like you think you should, it's those little things that then can turn into, I think, a bigger plan for how you can attack the market differently and how you can ultimately grow more effectively and efficiently as well. So, using AI, it's all of these things can be done relatively cost effectively. It's the execution, getting into the market, that's where you can see the value.
Yeah, I think that's a good segue into the next question. So, what are some of the biggest challenges that companies face when trying to bring new digital health, medtech solutions to the market, and how could a company do a better job of impacting the speed of commercialization?
Yeah, so again, kind of going back to my experience while working in big pharma and diagnostics, med tech for 24 years, there's a ton of great ideas out there. Uh, what they need often is making sure that they are differentiated from a product perspective,
Mhm.
and that they can execute uh, really at scale. And so it could be potentially they need some partnerships or some indirect sales channels that can help them grow. Potentially, it could be they need to think about a different business model, or there might be some gaps in terms of leadership or strategy and execution. Typically it's these little gaps uh, that need to be identified in order to kind of set growth in motion for these types of companies. It's never kind of one big obvious thing that I have found. At least it's generally kind of some smaller things that need to be tweaked and get aligned in order to be able to grow in the future.
Hence the leverage of AI and looking for non-obvious insights, which again I think is a
Exactly.
really, really great takeaway for this discussion. Just a couple more questions, and I really appreciate your time, Jim. So, how do leadership structures, how can they impact the success of digital health companies, and what alignment is often missing?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think a lot of times that there are leaders, obviously, in these organizations, but they marketing, this is what I've found. I don't know if it's that true or not, but a lot of times, like kind of quote unquote marketing or the commercial side doesn't necessarily get the focus that other parts of the organization does, whether it's the CEO or the technical side. And so sometimes they'll bring in more junior people
Mm,
to execute against the commercial side. And a lot of times it's simply experience that is required in order to bring in new or different ideas in order to get the commercialization going. And so at Genovis, I mean, that's something that I've found. So whether it's kind of marketing leadership, whether it's some leadership coaching,
mhm.
having spent, 24 years in a large pharma, there are a ton of lessons learned and different perspectives that can be shared to teams in order to kind of get things back on track or on track in order to be able to commercialize the product and help it grow and scale the way that it should.
Interesting point. Is all it's I find it very intriguing how it's so backwards, right? So you invest in the product, everything behind the scenes, the personnel, but then it comes to actually scaling, which is going to be a big component of getting purchased. Companies often skimp. Like it just doesn't make a lot of sense. So I like the kind of fresh perspective you brought in regards to kind of senior leadership and how that can be leveraged to help a company, scale quicker.
Yeah,
Last question
exactly.
for you. So, what engagement models do you believe are typically set up for success in regards to companies looking for strategic consulting?
Yeah, so well, for myself, I am most interested in fractional or project-based work. I want to be able to come in, uh, assess the situation, analyze it, put together a gap analysis, a strategy, a plan, a roadmap, a playbook, and then be able to exit out. Of course, I always plan to be available
Mhm.
to help with execution, but I don't necessarily want to be the one that is responsible for all of the execution. I would much rather go in, provide a third party perspective, put the
Mhm.
plan together, coach up um, the commercial team if needed or as necessary, and then be called upon to help assist at a later point. So fractional and project based is my preference.
That's actually a playbook that we leverage ourselves, and we see a lot in the market where, company brings in kind of a strategic resource to help build the infrastructure and the game plan, move them into more of kind of an advisory capacity, and then bring on a less expensive resource that can kind of execute upon plan, but then of course checking back with the strategic advisor on some sort of cadence that makes sense for all the stakeholders.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how I prefer to work. And I think, frankly, I think that's what works best because you are able to apply your knowledge, um, coach up the team, be available, as needed, and that will, but, allow them to really take it and own it.
Excellent. Jim, so where can people find you?
So pretty prevalent online, Twitter, LinkedIn, emails jim.lefevere at gmail.com or jim.lefevere at genovishealth.com. Pretty easy to find and
Excellent.
look forward to having people reach out.
Cool. We'll add some notes. We'll add that information to the notes. Jim, really appreciate you joining. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Bo. Appreciate it.